Thank you for joining us for virtual office hours. Just a few quick notes before we get started today. Feel free to chat with one another. I will be live on the Facebook and YouTube chats today. There will not be a Zoom meeting. Of course, I know that you will, but I ask that you please be respectful of all members of the Colburn community. If you have any questions or suggestions for this office hours or office hours you'd like to see in the future, please email me at parents@colburnschool.edu. And finally, thank you so much for joining us. Please enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Virtual Office Hours, Part 2. My name is Michelle Yamamoto. I'm the Manager of Alumni and Parent Relations here at the Colburn School. If you joined us last time, we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. I'll be hanging out in Facebook and YouTube in the chats live during the event, so if you'd like to interact that way, I'll be there for you. Due to some timing issues, I had to pre-record a bulk of this event, so we're not going to be in Zoom this time. Let me know what you think about this format, if you prefer the other format, if you want some more live engagement. Just send me feedback, myamamoto@colburnschool.edu or parents@colburnschool.edu. So let's set the stage a little bit. We've just crossed the autumnal equinox. That was this past Tuesday. In downtown LA, temperatures have plummeted from the high 90s to like the high 80s. Now we only have one more month left of daylight saving before we fall back. So in honor of this pronounced seasonal transition in Los Angeles, I thought it'd be fitting to give you a sneak peek of our fall season announcement, which will be officially made on Monday. It's going to go live on the website. There'll be postcards going out. But today we're going to take a quick peek at what's in store. I also sat down with Dr. Kristi Brown-Montesano this past week to talk with her about her new course in the Community School of Performing Arts. It's on Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, so we spend some time talking about the course details, but we also get into some nitty-gritty about Beethoven and music history generally. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. And of course, I have performances for you. So let's open up this virtual office hours with a performance from the Colburn Connected playlist. If you're not already familiar with it, Colburn Connected as a campaign is something that we put together to help you stay plugged into the performing arts while we continue to responsibly distance. You can find more about this initiative, what we've been working on during this time, and watch some great performances from students, faculty, and alumni. It's all on our website at colburnschool.edu/colburnconnected. We've also been using the hashtag #ColburnConnected as well on all of our social channels. That's just hashtag #ColburnConnected, no spaces. So feel free to tag us if there's something you'd like us to see. And that way you can also get a sense of what we've been putting out into the world as well. So in this performance, we have conservatory student Galia Kastner on violin, performing Tchaikovsky's Waltz Scherzo for violin and piano, Opus 34, with accompanist Alice Yu. Enjoy. Thank you, Galia and Alice. That was an incredible performance. And now, without further ado, let's take a peek at the new season. So this year, we're announcing the 2020 to 21 season by season. So you can expect a spring announcement later this year, but today we're just going to look at what we have in store for fall. So the first series of fall is our Serving a Beethoven Lunchtime concerts, which actually kicked off in late August. If you joined us at the last office hours, I screened a part of one of the first performances. It's gone on all through September, and as you can see, it takes us to the end of October as well. You can watch these every Thursday at noon on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Colburn School. And of course, if you ever miss the live broadcast, you can go back and watch past performances under videos on that Facebook page as well. The next series on the calendar is the Colburn Artist Series. This is where we invite past and present participants of our Colburn Artist program to return to the stage. If you don't already know, Colburn Artists is sort of our in-house professional management program that's available to conservatory students on track for careers as soloists or small ensembles such as quartets. They get assisted professional development in the area, learn more about the music industry, and get booking and touring support. Our first event in the series will be alumnus Rodolfo Leone, who graduated in 2019 and is currently signed to MKI Artists. Rodolfo was the first prize winner of the 2017 International Beethoven Piano Competition in Vienna and was recently the recipient of an Amron Sutherland grant through the Colburn School. So it should be a great evening of piano performance. Our second event will feature the Viano String Quartet, which is our current ensemble in residence, and joint first prize winners at the prestigious 2019 Banff International String Quartet Competition. They also did a number of performances at our Beethoven Festival last fall, B250, and we re-aired some of those over summer as part of the Servings of Beethoven Lunchtime concerts, so definitely go back to our Facebook page and check out those performances as well. Believe it or not, Virtual Office Hours is actually a series. And speaking broadly to the whole Colburn community, now it's your series. So if you have feedback on topics that you want me to cover, videos of your performances that you want me to share, or if there's an activity that you'd like to see me try to facilitate at an upcoming session, please reach out to me. I'm happy to say we have 3 more events to go this fall. These are tentative topics to help me sort of pull things together and plan, but I really want to encourage you to help shape these. So feel free to email me. My email is on screen, myamamoto@colburnschool.edu. You can also email me at parents@colburnschool.edu. This November, in partnership with the LA Opera, we will be live streaming their production of The Anonymous Lover from our own Zipper Hall, socially distanced, of course. The Anonymous Lover tells the tale of Leontine, a beautiful young widow, and her longtime acquaintance and kindred spirit, Valcor, who conspires to court her anonymously. This comic chamber opera by Black composer Joseph Bologna will be performed under the baton of James Conlon and directed by Bruce Lemon Jr. The LA Opera will be doing the digital ticketing for this event through their website. They haven't released tickets yet, but please check back in the coming weeks for more information on that. And last but not least, while the details are still coalescing around these last 2 items, we are excited to announce the early details now. The first is the Colburn Amplify series, which features artists of color in short-term residencies to include performances, masterclasses, and panel discussions. Colburn will also be providing resources to support their development as well. This year, 3 of our 4 artists will be Colburn alumni. So I hope that you all have a chance to engage with them, check out a masterclass, get to a performance. It's a really unique opportunity for Colburn. Finally, the Trudel Zipper Dance Institute is working on a virtual Nutcracker, which is going to be a cross-genre experience in both the dance and music presented. As you can read there, there's going to be some integration of Tchaikovsky and Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, so it's going to be a really unique experience. As soon as we have more details about these two projects, we will definitely share, so please stay tuned for that. So that's the fall season. Like I said, we're going to make a full official announcement on Monday, so you can expect to see a lot more fanfare around this announcement in the coming days. Let's take a look at the coming month. There are a couple of things coming up that we didn't just cover that I definitely want to make sure are on your radar. So this is your October at Colburn. Just a few things I'd like to draw your attention to here. First is that if you'll notice, every Tuesday we're doing what we call Tune In Tuesdays on Facebook. So you can just swing by our page at noon and get a little bite of something from the archives. It could be an orchestra performance, it could be a recital. It should be a fun little treat for your lunchtime hour. Another event coming up on the 9th is a masterclass featuring James Ennis at 4 p.m. And just for future reference, all times that we will post are going to be in Pacific time. For more information on Ennis and how to join that event, you can check the event listing on the calendar on our website. So from any page on the website, the top right is a blue box that says event calendar. Click on that and it'll bring up all of our event listings. And finally, I've made a note on the 15th that proposals are due for the Colburn Alumni Recital Series. This is a new series that we're hoping to roll out in spring, and we're currently accepting proposals for hour-long programs from alumni. If you would like to learn more about what and where to submit, you can find this information and more on the alumni section of our website. That link is in the gray bar at the top of every page on our website. Just click on alumni. I think it's in the drop-down, but you can also click through and find it there. If you're an alumnus that's really interested in doing this, or if you know of alumni that you think would be interested in doing this, please, I encourage you to share this. I have reached out to the alumni that I have noted on my contact list, but of course, there's so many out there, especially with the community school and its long history. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that this opportunity exists. There's a small amount of funding available, as well as potential access to recording equipment as it is available. Okay, now we've covered the basics, we've done the season overview, we've taken a look at the month ahead. It's time for our next performance. This one is from the Colburn Jazz Big Band Workshop. Lee Seacard and Walter Simonson put this video together, and it is great fun. I hope you enjoy it. I also would like to give a special shout out to Lee Seacard, who is the chair of Colburn Jazz Workshops here, who just received a glowing write-up in Downbeat Magazine. Congratulations, Lee. We're so glad that you're with us. So for now, please enjoy the Colburn Jazz Big Band Workshop performing Stompin' at the Savoy. I'm now pleased to introduce Dr. Kristi Brown-Montesano, Chair of Music History in the Colburn Conservatory of Music. She is a regular guest at all of our Colburn pre-concert talks and is a frequent lecturer for LA Opera's Opera for Educators seminars, as well as Salon de Musique chamber music series. Like I said, normally she's in the conservatory, but this fall she will be teaching a special course on Beethoven's Ninth in the Community School of Performing Arts, which means we all have the opportunity to experience her engaging curriculum finally. So I invited her here to hang out for a little bit, talk about what she has planned. Welcome, Kristi.
Hey,
Dr. Brown? Kristi Brown? Dr. Brown?
I mean, I think Kristi in this case, because we're just chatting, right?
We're just hanging out.
We're just hanging out. It's not formal.
No, not at all.
Right.
So, okay, let's start with the basic course details. If I were to sign up for the course, what can I expect if I've never taken a course like this before?
Right. And that was some of my concern about this course. One, it's just 4 weeks, so it's a pretty short course. I mean, you're getting basically 4 lecture discussion opportunities. And I don't know how many people will read music or be comfortable with a lot of musical vocabulary. Not that you can't learn some, and I'm pretty convinced that people can read kind of the graphics of notation and see certain things if you point it out to them. But I didn't want it to say, oh, well, if you don't read music, then you're out, because that's not. So I thought of it more like the things I do for Opera for Educators or the stuff for Upbeat Live is you want to be able to bring enough content about the music that people feel like they've had a chance to engage directly with the work, but also a lot of that would be my dog growling because there's somebody driving by, but also the history of the composer and the piece, which I find fascinating, because to me story is really why I got into this discipline anyway, is just fascination with human stories and how they intersect and interact with the arts. So my plan for it is to begin a little bit with where Beethoven comes from and how he ends up in Vienna and what the situation on the ground in Vienna is like when he arrives as a young man trying to become, a Mozart type, super performer slash, hyphen composer. And obviously his encroaching hearing loss begins to impede that goal, that he can't be a virtuoso pianist if he's not hearing well, and he's sensing that. So he double downs on the composer side of it, and that's kind of new, frankly. So it's not because he chose it, but it was enforced and then he made a decision. So we're going to look at that, kind of what that means to steer toward composer more and more as your only job, and how Vienna responds to him. I mean, the unique situation on the ground. And we'll look at some of the works that definitely are precursors to the Ninth Symphony. So one of those being the choral fantasia and what it was like to be in a, 4-hour long concert that he put on. So then the second step will be to look at, because this piece is much more political than people, I think, imagine, and that music in general is more political than people like to imagine. The Romantics did a great job of saying we transcend all socio-political content during one of the most revolutionary, literal revolutions on the ground, and heightened sense of nationalism centuries, right? So you're in the 19th century where all these revolutions are happening. Nation states like Germany and Italy are going to, but of course that has nothing to do with music. So it does. And we're looking at that. And so that I want to look at some of Beethoven's political music, like explicitly times he engaged with political anthems like God Save the King. And his fascination with kind of the political anthem as a material for more a more large scale piece. So we'll look at that. And again, check out some of his music that may not be as well known, the variations on God Save the King and Rule Britannia, and also a pretty terrible piece, sorry, but it was pretty terrible, called The Glorious Moment, which he wrote for the Congress of Vienna after Napoleon's defeat. So he's directly involved in a kind of UN gathering and provides this piece glorifying Vienna and Europe. So that's your second state. And then I feel then we're prepared to look at his late period style and get into the four movements. So we will spend time with each movement, and I'm hoping that I can highlight things that are pretty easy to see graphically and hear, and also his relationship. I mean, it's in some ways a very traditional symphony. It's got four movements, and those four movements pretty much track with what a typical movement structure would be. So we have a sonata form first movement, we have a scherzo-y second movement, we have a slow adagio variations third movement, and then the fourth movement, which is both very normal in some ways and completely bonkers in another way. So that's what we'll do. Those will be lectures 3 and 4. We'll break the symphony into two movements and two movements, and we'll look at his relationship to those four movement types in previous symphonies, but really kind of get into the construction and I don't know, the unusual style elements of the Ninth Symphony as a whole.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. And I also like that you are using the ninth sort of as like the keystone for the course, but you're going to touch on all of these other tangential topics and really set the backdrop for what is this like incredible symphony that we are still talking about today and has influenced so many different pieces of the art world. I just want to be like really sure though. So like if I were to show up and I've never read a score before, is that going to be an issue? Am I going to be able to follow it fairly?
I totally have your back on this.
Okay, good.
No problem. I mean, my feeling is that the visuals should help those who are musically notationally literate, because you can be musically literate through your ears and your knowledge of other repertoire. But the notation I would show, I would be guiding you to say, okay, you may not, but notice this pattern. And I've done this with people who are in other courses. You know, I did a whole thing on a Schubert song, Death and the Maiden, in a film course at UCLA. I came in as a guest, and I found that people could track pretty well with what I was trying to show them, because it's not like I'm saying, now look at this particular note. It's literally more pattern or showing how a score is set up. So it might actually be interesting for people who haven't seen that to say, okay, this is how it gets written down. And the only reason I'm showing you this is that you can see how he's constantly breaking. Strings are down here, woodwinds are up here. So when I say they're dialogue, you can actually see the pattern of dialogue. You don't have to read the individual notes. You're just seeing as though it were a graphic chart. So, you know, that's the kind of thing. It would be very carefully calibrated so that any level of kind of notational literacy should feel comfortable with what I put out there.
Okay.
I think that's very important. So, and that's,
and maybe
that would be, listening is more important.
Got it. Okay. And no term papers, right?
No term papers, no real, you know, there are no real assignments. What I will do is I will suggest to everyone after each meeting that they go listen to a whole piece. I mean, we're not going to listen to the entire choral fantasy, but I might say, here, these are recommendations. I'm not sure yet how I'm communicating to the people who enroll, but I might send something out that says, here's some recommended listening, other things to look at. So there'll always be things to further people's interests as they wish. And then I think I'll probably have them listen to the movements before I discuss them. So say before next week, anywhere, any performance, I'm not asking you to look at a particular thing, but you choose what you'd like to listen to, but go listen to the first two movements of the night. Spend some time with it so that when we kind of hit the ground, it's not completely new. to you,
Right.
to your ears. So that's about
Right.
it.
So it's easy listening homework. I like that quite a bit.
Easy listening homework. Absolutely.
And when does this officially start? What's the first lecture
It
date?
starts on the 3rd of October. That is a Saturday, 11 to 12:15, and it then goes on for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So just consecutive 4 weeks, this 75-minute period, which is enough to get into some things.
Yeah.
Because if you start to be shorter than that, there's no time for questions. There's no time. So, and I'd like to feel like the class, the participants can actually bring some stuff to the table. I mean, Zoom is great because you can use chat. So if you're shy, you don't have to, you can just throw things up on chat. I've become very good at checking chat. I do sometimes miss for a few minutes, but I have to use it for my classes as well. Not everybody is comfortable unmuting themselves and asking for attention. This is something
Right.
we learned, that it's a little psychological step to say, okay, I'm going to unmute myself and talk.
Yeah.
So the chat feature, once people get used to it, it's great because you can throw a lot of things, and then I'm able to engage with that and bring the other participants in as well.
Yeah. And I think that in Zoom chat, and this is only, I've noticed this in a few classes that I've taken, but you can direct your messaging even. So if you wanted to only send a question to one person,
Yes.
and even have that much more of like an enclosed experience, but it
Yes.
like a safe space for you to ask a question. It's another way
Yes.
that you can interact with the class without having to really put yourself out there. So
Right. So in fact, one thing I'll probably do, I don't do this with my students at the conservatory because I think it's important that they get used to speaking in front of each other. So I will repeat their name. So even if it's private, unless it's something like my internet's down and I have to reboot or whatever. But um, what I usually will do, if it's a private, in this case, I would just say, we've had a question, which is blah, 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 blah. And I'll share that because what the person may not realize is other people have that question as well. But if they choose to make it private instead of everybody, then I'll take that as a sign that they would prefer not to be identified, and just stay in a safer spot.
yeah,
So yeah, and we don't have enough time where we're building kind of community in the usual way. So yeah,
right.
those are available. Lots of options for communicating
Yeah.
without making yourself feel like you're on the spot.
It's so funny. I just feel like it's something that I would have really appreciated as a student, because I would have these what I thought were good questions or questions that could drive the conversation forward, but I wasn't quite sure how to articulate it. And then I didn't want to like if it was a seminar room and I'm surrounded, like it's just a different concept to be able to pipe it directly to the professor and have them handle the
Absolutely.
inquiry. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that I've become pretty good. I always have two screens going. So I've been able to see a class and see the chat on one screen and then share on the other.
Mm.
So they're able to see whatever slides, whatever things. So I have that. And I just keep an eye on my kind of, I don't know what we would call that. What is
Command
it? The,
center.
the command center. Yes. I was thinking like, the pilot, kind of like all the lights. Um, so that will be the plan. Now, depending on how many people there are, I might need an assistant to let people in and out as things happen because people arrive late. And
Right.
so we'll see. In some of my class, I have an 18-person freshman class. So it's great if they're on time, but occasionally I'm having to look out for that
Right.
person. So anyway, I think I'm now past the point where Zoom feels completely artificial. So I hope that I can bring students along, participants along in this process, is to make it feel
Yeah.
a little bit more like we're in a room together.
Yeah, I think the globe right now probably feels a little bit less, I guess, hesitant in the Zoom space now. So that's
Yes,
yeah,
it's
it's good to
it's
continue that.
we should be thankful for tech. I mean, it's
Yeah,
helped us in an unbelievable historical moment.
yeah,
So
really.
yeah,
Well, okay, those are the nitty-gritty details of the
right.
course, which I think are important to hear about. But I wanted to hear more. I feel like you've mentioned it sort of in passing before, but I would like to hear more about your relationship with Beethoven and why you chose this specific topic for the course and not another work of his or something more specific to his personal life or something like that.
Yeah, that is a really good question because I think that in some ways, for people who are looking at the canon, so the pieces that have been, sanctified as we will carry these forward and perform them for, you know, eternity. Um, Beethoven's Ninth is kind of annoying. I mean, it was a shadow for the composers who came after him. All of his symphonies, but the Ninth just seemed to break something open that left a lot of composers that came after a little paralyzed about what to do now. Um, it it has been kitschified. I don't know if I make that word up. The Ode to Joy shows up everywhere. Like it's just used randomly whenever like there could be a beer commercial and there's like a touchdown, everybody goes crazy for it. It's the European anthem. And I think basically I came of age as a music historian, so in grad school, um, from the mid 80s to the mid 90s. And this was also an awakening of a lot of feminist thoughts on musicology and the canon. And, there were no women composers in the textbook that I had in undergraduates. Fanny Mendelssohn was mentioned, Clara Schumann was mentioned. That's it. And then Hildegard came in the middle. So, everybody was doing male composers, and there were a lot of feminists who really felt like this guy and his music were a big problem. That they were, in fact, if you wanted to encapsulate the problem of super male-centric music history as a discipline and classical music as a tradition, it all starts, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, right? The three Bs. Those were So there were some pretty hard knocks about the Ninth Symphony as being aggressive, patriarchal, all kind of, and I could totally get that at some level. And I also read a lot of, Maynard Solomon, who wrote kind of the groundbreaking psychological biography of Beethoven, came as a guest to my class in graduate school, and we talked about it. And we asked him, "Why did you write this biography?" And he said, "Because the Fifth Symphony scared the heck out of me." Actually, he didn't say heck, just fill it in. So there's been this fascination with this composer, and I also found him not very likable at that time. He was incredibly unkind to his sister-in-law, and caused trauma, topic about family traumas, against his dead brother's wishes, basically taking full custody of his nephew. So I had this very kind of antagonistic relationship. And I don't know when that changed. I think it changed with a certain idea of compassion. I read about this, about compassionate objectivity. This guy was talking about biography, and I thought that's a really interesting thing, because it had never really gotten to me that he was our first, in many ways, in the canon, because there were others, but disabled artists. I mean, this is a serious thing, that he was a child of an adult alcoholic parent, that he had, there was all these things, but I began to get into the human side of this composer, of this man, as much as we could know him, since he's long gone. And the Ninth seemed to me to be a kind of, because it's so revered, it seemed like an interesting object to struggle with and against, as I tried to understand what it means to live and work in a world that is obsessed with Beethoven, that accepts it. So that's a kind of scholarly, so I have a love-hate relationship with the piece. I've told people this, and a little bit with Beethoven, but I definitely, here's the other side, is I get excited every time I hear this work. I went to the Hollywood Bowl, one of the last times I could go there, and they played it. And I was with people, and they were like, "Yeah, we can leave early." Like, we've heard that. No,
Wow.
this is the really is, and I thought, no, no, no. Once you're in, you're in. And the first movement ended. It's so exciting. And somebody yelled across the entire bowl, "Yeah!" And the
Wow, what a
whole
reaction.
bowl like relaxed with this chuckle and this warmth. And I thought to myself, now there's a little alle Menschen werden Brüder. All people, men will, but all people will be brothers and sisters.
Mm.
Moment. We're all there, and there's 11 people drinking their wine, and it was a gorgeous night, and the stars were out. You could see some in Los Angeles, and
Imagine that.
the woman who was conducting, tried to get herself together because she wanted to start laughing. um and it was just, I thought, yeah. And we got to the Fourth Symphony, and I still get goosebumps, and I still get a little lump in my throat, and I think, okay, there has to be something, right? I can't just dismiss this work.
Yeah. It's such
It's
an interesting like tangle to have to deal with the humans that make these artifacts and then these artifacts that are just sort of glorious and like you said, like canon material in their own right, but there's this whole history behind them and having to
right.
sort of reconcile those notions. I mean, I think people do that. This is a
Oh.
stretch, but people probably do this today with like Kanye, right? With,
Oh
there's
yeah,
a lot of
how
like
are you dealing with
implications to
him?
his personality versus, the work that he creates, which
Absolutely.
is, kind of undeniable.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many artists today where this is still a question. Um, and we have far worse examples in terms of artists and their lack of humanity at times. I mean, I don't think that Beethoven was lacking humanity. I think he was a deeply flawed, um, and to use art, traumatized in many ways artist. But I also am fascinated with the Ninth's long reception history. So what we talk about is, the piece is premiered, it exists, it's written down, the composer dies, and then the piece lives. And that reception history, how we respond to the piece, there are few pieces that have such an interesting reception history. And that's the other reason I'm in it. It has continued to generate responses. Uh, all over the place. I mean, Debussy was worried that it was literally going to disappear under the weight of all the verbiage, as he did. So that's a fascinating thing to me, is that this piece lives its life, um, still today. It still has different meanings. It's been appropriated by just about every political spectrum, thing. It's been a voice of the Ode to Joy has been used as a voice of resistance. It was also, there's chilling footage of um, Furtwängler conducting it for Hitler's birthday with Goebbels in the front row. And unironic, alle Menschen werden Brüder. So that to me is just, there's a fascination with that. And many of the students in their evaluation of the summer course, which was more intense and were like, I had my doubts about why this one piece. How could you make a course on a single piece? And it all came back like, I had no idea how much history is involved with a single piece, and the importance of this piece for the tradition and for kind of the reception history of Western musical art. So that, I think, is why I'm still in it. I'm still interested. I haven't gotten bored yet.
Yeah, there's just so much there really to
A
keep
lot there.
unpacking. Yeah.
Too much for
Well,
me to include, sadly. So we're not going to get into a lot of the reception history, because
right.
the on the ground origins uh, already have so much to talk about, and the piece itself.
Well, it sounds very interesting. I hope that I can sneak in on some of them. That would be great.
Yes,
um,
I hope so.
yeah, yeah, I'm very interested in this kind of conversation around music and history, obviously. But I wanted to turn now to the music itself, because as soon as we conclude this interview, I'm going to screen the finale as performed by the finale of the Ninth Symphony, I should be clear, as performed by Colburn Orchestra in 2016, I believe,
Right?
with, I think, some of the Sun, the Cal State Northridge choirs for the finale. Um, I'm just wondering, for those that are less familiar with the piece, or even for those that are already very familiar with it, but like looking for some kind of surprising element, are there any features that we should listen for, focus on, any particular moments other than like the obvious one? But
Yes. So for the finale. So the finale, I will say, the first thing to recognize it has kind of what we would call a weird kind of double exposition, double beginnings. It starts one that is only the orchestra, and he invests the lower strings, cellos and double bass, with what is has been a vocal style, which is what we think of as recitative in opera. So we are to imagine, in fact, and the way the melodies are created is as though they're singing in an opera and telling us something. So this importance of the ability to say something, it's there at the beginning. So there's this Schreckens fanfare, as Wagner said, there's this horrible beginning. It's super, and then they start this long monologue that is just instrumental. And people paid attention a lot to this. So I say, and then they go through and they're going to give you the beginning of the Ode to Joy, and they're going to lay it out in each, like you're going to hear different instruments taking up this theme. And then it stops. And you get the Schreckens fanfare, this horror fanfare, as Wagner called it, again. You start over, and this time the baritone soloist speaks to us. And it's, nicht diesen Töne, not these tones, not these, but this new idea. Now, another thing he's done in the orchestral exposition is he recalls the three earlier movements. So when the baritone says, not these, like, we're done with that, I have a new idea. And people have read all kinds of things out of that, the least being that he's just added chorus to a symphony, which is just, that hasn't happened, right? But now you're getting the words, and the words are Schiller's. And that's another thing we'll look at in the class is why Schiller's Ode to Joy? It was a pretty old poem by then. So what was the Enlightenment, utopia, like what was happening there? So that's the one thing to listen, is this double presentation and the differences that happen there. Then my favorite part happens shortly after everybody's, we've had this big choral, the Ode to Joy coming out. And then they're going to be saying, steht vor Gott, in this very, very loud, and they do, I'm not going to sing this in pitch, but it's steht vor Gott, for God, for God. Okay, I call it the greatest mediant drop ever. Doesn't matter if anybody understands that. It literally, and it cuts off, and we have silence, and then boom, boom, boom. You get this. And this is the Turkish March. And we'll get into why is it called the Turkish March. But that is, to me, one of my most favorite, and it's also, to me, one of the most disturbing moments of the finale, because it is very militaristic. And this is the one that would show up as well in like Clockwork Orange, when we're looking for people who know that. It feels very goose-steppy, and so those are some things to listen for right away. If you start with that, I feel like that's a good start, and we will investigate those things more closely. I'll be playing recitative so they can understand, that's what it sounds like in a Handel opera or a Bach cantata. And then they can actually hear, that is so, yeah, that's what that is. So that's what I mean by ears being able to pick things up, as opposed to having to read music.
got it. That is incredibly helpful. I've like literally scribbled some notes down for myself as well. So
Good, good.
thank you for that. And then the last question is, where did
Yes.
you get Beethoven? From whence does he come to your office?
You know, um, Beethoven came to me from Doug Dutton, uh, who has taught at the school, and he was there for a long time. I think Doug is still teaching at the school. He and his family owned Dutton's bookstore, which for
Mm,
years was so important to the West Side area. And sadly, they had to close with the rise of more internet stuff. And I don't know why, but he had Beethoven and he had a little Mozart bust. And Beethoven sat in my office. He said, "Do you want these?" And I said, "Sure." I thought it was kind of, again, kind of funny and kitschy. Um, and so and then we did Beethoven 250,
right.
and that was it. I like, your moment has arrived. It's the first Beethoven year that we've been together. And so it's time to bring you out and
Show
let
you
you
off.
show you off. So now he was in my office at school, which of course I don't go to very often. And so I brought him home, and he's become kind of I don't know, what is that? A mascot in some ways for all kinds of things. But I'm honestly thinking that I may need to start a kind of Instagram moment with LVB and me,
Oh,
where
yes.
we just live our lives in Los Angeles and have conversations.
Just living his best life, living
Just
your best
living his
life.
best afterlife as a statue. So that's I mean, there are Beethoven action figures, but I just feel like, and he's kind of, he's dented a little bit. He's not perfect,
It's a little
which to
worse for
me
wear, but
is perfect. Like that's a Beethoven that you can kind of enjoy having around. So
well, I'm glad to hear he has a little bit of a Colburn lineage.
he
Maybe
does.
he'll
He
maybe he will
did.
continue on in the years.
He was very generously donated to me by Doug, a wonderful colleague and friend. So
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me about this course and about Beethoven generally. It's been
thank
very
you. I really hope
fascinating.
people will. I hope they'll sign up. I hope that they won't be at all intimidated, because this should be, I think, the same kind of group again that would come to an Upbeat Live or any pre-concert, that it's curiosity and interest and love of the music that's driving you, and that's really the only prerequisite.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
We may not be on the plaza together, but I do hope you're enjoying your cup of coffee wherever you are tuning in from. I certainly am enjoying mine. So special thanks to Dr. Kristi Brown-Montesano for making the time to talk to me about her course before she had to speed off to teach a conservatory course the other day. And I hope you all got a better understanding of what that kind of a course will look like, since it's not something that we offer regularly. I hope you all get a chance to sign up for it. So this brings us to our final performance, which is the finale of, you guessed it, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, as performed by Colburn Orchestra in 2016. This performance took place at Cal State Northridge at the Soraya, and they performed alongside the Cal State Northridge Choirs, Vox Femina, and the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles. And if you look hard enough, you may be able to find our very own Will Brooks, the marketing and program specialist in the community school, who is still a student at Cal State Northridge at the time of this performance. And I also hope you got some good tips from Kristi about what to listen for, cues to keep your eye out, or keep your ears tuned to. It is a longer piece. It's a little over 20 minutes. So I'm going to play us out on this piece. Thank you again for joining us. I hope it was informative, at least a little, entertaining, at least a little. Please be sure to join us again on Halloween. That's October 31st for our next virtual office hours. In the meantime, if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to email me at parents@colburnschool.edu. Something you want to see, something you think we should cover, a question that came up while you were watching that I wasn't able to answer in the chats, always feel free to reach out to me. So, in the meantime, until we meet again, please enjoy the finale of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony as performed by Colburn Orchestra alongside Cal State Northridge Choirs, Vox Femina, and the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles. Please take care of yourselves and have a great October. I'll see you soon.
Stella si